All right. Excellent. We're with Fred Blackwell. Fred is the Assistant City Administrator of the City of Oakland. And Fred, give us an update regarding the Oakland Army Base. Where are we?
Sure. After lots of years of planning and coming up with different development proposals for the Army Base, we're really happy about where we are right now in terms of the development program. As you know, in the past there have been proposals around luxury car dealerships and casinos and maybe retail malls and things like that. And what we've landed on is, I think, a program that is going to be complementary of the Port of Oakland and really helping it to maintain its competitiveness, but also produce, I think, a lot of good high-paying jobs for Oaklanders. There are really four core components to the development program. One is the development of a new break bulk marine terminal. And for those who don't know, break bulk commodities are things like iron ore, grain, and stuff like that. That's basically shipped in the bows of a ship, which is really complementary and quite different from the port's main activity out there in Oakland, which is, as most folks know, is containerized products. And so this will be the only deep water break bulk marine terminal in Northern California. So we think it will be very competitive and be the impetus for a lot of import and export coming through the Port of Oakland and through the City of Oakland in general. The second component to the program is about 1 million square feet of logistics and warehousing, and trade logistics warehouses, essentially. And there we're talking about things where people who are either importing or exporting through that new break bulk marine terminal or through the Port of Oakland in general will have new state-of-the-art facilities to do that work. And we think that that also will be quite competitive. The third dimension to the program is actually rail. Rail to serve the new warehouses and rail to serve the new break bulk marine terminal. Rail is important because there are important environmental justice benefits associated with it. When products come in from overseas or go out from the country, the use of rail rather than truck traffic through West Oakland and the emissions that are created as a result of that is really important in terms of supporting the environmental justice things that are going on in West Oakland. And it's a more efficient way to transport goods. And so we think that the rail stuff is going to be important. There'll be a rail component that supports those things that I talked about, but will also connect to a new rail yard on the port side of the Army base. And that will basically mean that products will be able to come from overseas right into the break bulk marine terminal, can get taken into these warehousing facilities and out through the rest of the country or the rest of the region, in some cases without ever having to be transported by trucks. The fourth component, which is also, I think, important from an environmental justice standpoint, is in the northern part of the area. There'll be 2 new recycling companies that will be located on the Army base. What's important about that is these are companies that will be relocated out of West Oakland. And so the notion of being able to both put these recycling companies in a place that is, we think, a lot more appropriate in terms of their use on the Army base, but also relieve the neighborhood, the West Oakland community of the long-standing problem. The environmental negatives associated with having those things in the neighborhood is a perfect win-win situation. And so those 4 components are the key components of the program from a bricks and mortar point of view, and we anticipate being in the ground on that by December of 2013.
Continue.
So, we anticipate all that stuff to be in the ground by December of 2013, and from a bricks and mortar point of view and an economic standpoint, we think it's really important work. But that's not where we stopped. Another key component of this, from I think my perspective and from the perspective of the administration in general, is that it wasn't enough just to deal with the bricks and mortar. We thought that it was important in a place like Oakland, where we have high levels of unemployment and residents who live through it, particularly in West Oakland, years of disinvestment and neglect, and have watched that land lay fallow for years. That there be benefits associated to this work that accrue to them. And there are a few things that we're really proud of in terms of what we've negotiated with the developers, CCIG and Prologis, in getting this deal done. One is 50% local hire, both on the construction side and on the permanent job side of this project. And the 50% on the operations of permanent jobs is something that is, I think, for the most part in this city, unprecedented in terms of being able to negotiate something like that. And so we're really happy about
it's
that.
Like 20%.
It's usually something lower than that. It also, we've also negotiated wall-to-wall living wage, which means that all the jobs that will be created during this development process and beyond will be beyond minimum wage and will be at a livable wage, which is something that is fantastic and that you don't see in a lot of projects. We have also negotiated pretty significant provisions to make sure that people who have criminal convictions in some way are able to get a fair shake at the jobs that are going to be created there by having a provision called ban the box. And so for all those reasons, we're actually not only excited about what's going to happen just from a physical standpoint, but we're excited about what we think is going to happen in terms of lifting all boats.
Where's the situation with the funding at? Because I was told by a couple of sources that the CTC, the California Transportation Commission staff, had to disagree with the board. Can you shed some light on that?
Sure. About 4 years ago, the Port of Oakland actually was given a $242 million allocation or set aside from the CTC to actually implement this project, TCIF funds, Transportation Corridor Improvement funds. Over the years, it's been very difficult to get the project off the ground. I mean, as I said before, there have been a lot of different proposals that have been put out there. It's been difficult to get the CEQA work going to make sure that all the environmental reviews were in place before development could take place. And the land use plan that I just described has changed quite a bit over the last few years. For all of those reasons, I think the staff at the CTC have become both impatient with the Port of Oakland and anxious about whether or not the city and the port would be able to meet the December 2013 deadline for getting a shovel in the ground. In large part, that is the reason why we have really spent the last, I would say, 5 months or so really hustling on the city side to get a deal done, get it in front of council, do all the stuff that we had to do from an environmental review perspective, and get all the development agreements in place. We were told that unless we had CEQA in place and could identify in real terms where the private match was going to come from, or the match money in general was going to come from in order to meet the TCIF requirements, that we were really in danger of losing that money.
And all that's done now, so.
We completed that, but there have been new concerns raised from CTC staff about whether or not the new project that we have and what's been approved by council actually fits within the four corners of
oh my God, that's a fresh concern.
Guidelines are, and so we just last week submitted a letter to CTC outlining why we think this project does fit within the TCIF guidelines and why we think that there are significant trade corridor benefits that would accrue to the state by advancing this project. And we hope to hear within the next few days to week or so what the verdict is on that. But we're optimistic.
Listening wants to help as an advocate, what should they do? Write the representative, or?
I think at this point we're really kind of following the process at TCIF and making sure that just from a strict kind of guideline and policy standpoint that people understand at the state that we fit within that box. We haven't yet kind of gone to a political strategy to make sure that people in Oakland notify their representatives in Sacramento that they need to be called into action. But if we get a response from CTC that suggests that that's what we need to do, that's what we will do.
What's the website for the project for people watching if they want to find out more?
If you want to find out more, you can go to oaklandnet.com and you can find all the documents that I just described. We have a disposition and development agreement with the developer. There's a MOU up there with East Bay Mud because they're a neighbor. and we wanted to make sure that we didn't impose any undue harm on their project and the things that they were doing. There's a billboard agreement there. One of the ways that we're going to generate revenue is through the putting up of new billboards, and people will be able to review that, and the policies that I referred to around contracting and jobs and community benefits are up there as well as the CEQA documents.
How many total jobs are we talking about? How many acres for the project?
We're talking about probably 2,500 construction jobs and probably another 3,000 permanent jobs on top of that. The acreage for the project is about 130 acres total at the Army base, but right now, just on the city side, we're talking about a little bit more than half of that.
And when do you anticipate everything starting to become built or operational?
Yeah, as I said, on the construction side, we anticipate having a shovel in the ground by December of 2013. There'll probably be a 3 to 5 year build out because we're talking about new roads, new sidewalks,
so basically a city within a city.
Right. All the plumbing and infrastructure that will be necessary, and then only after that is complete, will we be able to engage in the vertical development that will enable all these things that I'm talking about. Excellent. So there'll be a lot of construction and a long construction phase before we actually activate the operations jobs. I think that's about 5 years out.
How is it working with the developer?
The developer has been pretty good on this.
Excellent.
We've been working really closely with Phil Tagami, who's the principal at CCIG, and a guy named Mark Hansen, who is the principal negotiator for Prologis. Both of them are anxious to get started and get the work underway, and I think both also understood the importance that we were placing on making sure that Oakland residents and businesses had a chance to benefit from this project.
And with that, Bill, I know you got to get back to work, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, cool.